Pokemon TCG Pocket has so much potential, but after picking up the game for the first time and playing for a little bit, most players realize the game has some problems, so I want to talk about the biggest ones in this video and give some suggestions on how to fix them. Even though the company's never going to listen, I think the discussion is fun. So if you end up enjoying the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, and of course, comment your thoughts down below. So, what do we talk about first? Because Turn 1 disadvantage is just absurd and worth talking about, but also, EX Pokemon? Do we just lead with EX because it's bigger and flashier? Let's lead with EX and we'll talk about some of the other problems. The Turn 1 is just a taste of what else is in this video. Watching more of the video is really good for the YouTube algorithm, so I gotta keep you guys on the hook. But EX Pokemon, I think the problem goes much deeper than just, oh, Pikachu and Mewtwo are busted and unfun to play against, even though Pikachu and Mewtwo EX are busted and unfun to play against. The problem is, EX Pokemon didn't exist when the franchise became a global phenomenon a quarter century ago, so with Pokemon TCG Pocket kind of being a reboot of the Pokemon TCG, now we got too many mechanics coming in, and we're trying to turn it into a speed duel. That way people can get like a quick, digestible, easy to play, easy to understand, easy to get into form of the TCG. And now these mechanics just do not fit together at all. Also, a big reason why Pokemon Go worked is because it brought back all of the old Pokemon fans that just wanted to relive Generation 1 when they were growing up in the 90s all over again. And Pokemon Go was very successful at that. Pokemon TCG Pocket is trying to modernize a retro thing, and that's not how you get the retro audience in the same amount of success. And again, trying to crash these mechanics together is just creating a lot of problems. Just the idea of like EX power being worth 2/3 of your score, and then being able to just like play only EX Pokemon and have 4 effective points to the opponent's 3 is also really weird and horrible for game balance, and then EX power just creeps out almost every other card. So instead of having a jank, low-power game of play whatever your favorite Pokemon are and try to squeeze out a win like you had back in the early days of Pokemon, now it's just, yeah, most of it is completely unplayable. Why spend any amount of time evolving a Pokemon that's just worse than a basic EX Pokemon? And even within the brackets of EX, there's really stupid things like Pikachu just being basic, having 2 energy, and then being able to swing for 90 damage on 2 energy and 2-hit KO everything, while not being able to get KO'd by most EX Pokemon and pretty much every basic Pokemon. That's not cool. Starmie, which comes online just as fast. Starmie effectively does the same thing, but has a trainer card that makes it come online faster, and then Mewtwo, which can just one-shot, survive a thing, and then one-shot, and end the game in pretty much all circumstances once it sets up in a couple of turns. And the other power level in the game makes it pretty hard to stop while it's setting up in those couple of turns. Really, the only way Mewtwo loses is by being unlucky. So what do we do to bring EX Pokemon in line? It starts getting kind of weird, because if you nerf their power, they kind of become useless, but maybe that needs to be the play, because currently, most EX Pokemon are stronger than their 2/3 of win condition that they're worth, even though it's only like half the game as well, because again, EX, KO, EX, you have 4 effective points, which means you just have to run it, or you're at a disadvantage, which isn't cool. So potentially nerfs to the energy cost, retreat cost, health, and damage numbers to EX cards is needed, but also maybe EX Pokemon should be like the ultimate powerhouse boss Pokemon of the deck, in which case you can only have 1 EX Pokemon in your deck. I think that would be really interesting. And not even like, oh, you can only have 1 EX of that species. So you can run 1 Lapras EX, 1 Articuno EX, 1 Starmie EX. Well, now we didn't solve any of the problems. That's why I say like 1 EX Pokemon in your deck. And if it's a basic one, that means you can search with a Pokeball. So it's not like, oh, but I never draw my EX, so now it's bad. Good. That's better than the current situation of balance that we have now. Also, introducing other trainers and support for it, like an Ultra Ball, which will randomly grab a non-basic Pokemon or a basic EX from your deck. Maybe like Ultra Ball prioritizes EX Pokemon and then gets any Stage 1 or Stage 2 if you already have your EX. The game just sounds infinitely more fun like that. Or I was also thinking you can have one EX of each species, but you can still have multiple EX in the deck. However, only one EX on the field at any time. That way you can't be like putting down 2 EX Pokemon the first turn, and then whatever energy manipulation shenanigans you're doing, it's like, okay, you KO'd my EX. Oh wait, never mind, my second EX is in and already at full power, so it's not like you did anything, I get the revenge KO, I win the game. So now it kind of means like, oh, if you lose your EX Pokemon, you have to start over with the EX power level all over again. And I think that can also bring a lot of balance to it. So maybe that's the big brain. One of those two things fixes EX, and you actually don't have to nerf the hit points or the stats or anything about the card. You just make the cards more restrictive in the deck building. That way people don't get confused about the rules. You can only have 2 of a card name, and if you try to like make an ineligible deck, it just tells you all the things wrong with it. So now I can just say like only 1 EX card allowed. That doesn't hurt the collectability because you still need to get a Chase EX to build a deck around it. And the thing is, no one is spending money to get 2 Mewtwo EX and a Gardevoir. They just delete their account and try again with all the advanced missions and all, like the 50 packs you get day 1 if you grind out everything the game has to offer. And then that's how you can just build whatever deck of whatever archetype you want. And people are doing it for free because they're just sweating it like that. So something needs to be done about EX Pokemon dominance, but also the rest of the game's balance is baffling. How was there a beta? How did the devs have any amount of time with this game and not test it to realize going first feels absolutely horrible, which is against every game ever made, that if you win the coin flip, you should have an advantage. And also, if you win the coin flip and want to go second, you're stuck going first. There's no choice. You can't force the badness of going first onto your opponent. So winning the coin flip is such a massive disadvantage. You don't even have like the autonomy to attempt to make it neutral or beneficial to you. That is absolutely insane. And also the game's balance goes completely backwards. So in the TCG, you get to play energy but not supporters. In this, you get to play supporters, which means you can play Misty, and then Misty just gives water type decks a massive advantage. So you could actually play Misty, get lucky turn 1, and then swing 80 damage on your opponent. Or if it's a Lapras and you swing 4, or like you get 4 and then you use that buffed Hydro Pump and you just one-shot everything. It's like, that you shouldn't be allowed to attack on the first turn. There's one cheese way of doing that, and in all other cases, it's a total disadvantage to go first, which means now your opponent just gets all the tempo with the energy. What's the, like, there needs to be a different kind of balance. You don't get any kind of benefit for the setup of going first because the opponent just gets to mirror you with an extra energy. So it's not any different to hand all of the advantage to the person that loses the coin toss, because yeah, in the simplified format, if you go first, you put an energy down, your win chances go up. Like, it's impossible in this format to make it, well, it shouldn't be 50-50, because again, if you win the coin toss, you should have some kind of advantage for the leadoff. But also because it's best of 1 and you have to decide via coin flip, there's not really anything you can do to kind of bring that back in line, but you should have an advantage for going first or getting side selection or something like that. So where it's like 55-45 or whatever those numbers are in a traditional game where you get an advantage for winning the coin toss, now it's like 70-30, you get a disadvantage and just almost auto lose. And now the game is like super unfun because the energy first is that important, and instead you're giving it to the loser with no benefit or nothing to come back for the player that actually gets heads. No idea how to balance it, but it's stupid. That also kind of goes into other things that need nerfs. Misty. If EX Pokemon are nerfed, if anything else is done to like balance turn 1 or something, or whoever goes first, yeah, Misty needs a nerf. You can't let the infinity coin flip. Sure, it feels fun, but it's completely uncompetitive and adds way too much RNG and just silliness into the game. There was a comment on one of my videos from a longtime fan that I think is close. I think they might be trying to nerf the card a little too hard or put too many rules, because that's another problem. We don't want to turn into Yu-Gi-Oh! With a million rules and stipulations. We want to have a simple, fun Pokemon game. So I think adding a, you cannot play this card in first turn, that's a little too far. However, target a water Pokemon, flip 2 coins, you can attach a number of water energy up to the number of heads flipped. And then if you attach 2 energy in this way, the Pokemon can't attack or evolve. That's way too far. Also, way too much rules that's completely unnecessary. Honestly, compared to current Misty, Misty would be really balanced if it just flip 2 coins and then attach energy from your energy zone to any of your water-type Pokemon for the number of heads. That's all it needs to be. It also doesn't have to be like just one Pokemon. I think it'd be cool if you get the coin flip, you have 2, and then you can put those anywhere you want. That still seems fair to me. Also, it means that like you don't immediately lose the game where it's like turn 1 Misty instead of like playing Bill or playing something else, where like you use your supporter card, you get Tails, and then your turn pretty much immediately ends and you don't get that extra energy. So at least if you get a Tails first, you have a chance of getting head second. So it's like pretty low odds or lower odds to get Tails, then at least 1 head somewhere and you get 1 energy acceleration for playing your supporter card. I think it's completely fair if it's just flip 2 coins and attach water energy for the number of heads. You can still brick, you can still pop off, but it's going to add like consistency and fairness to the play. Also, I think Brock just needs to be attach fighting energy to any fighting type Pokemon. So the more consistent lower power play, instead of that it only works with Onix and Golem. So that just makes it way too narrow of a card, and Onix seems like it just kind of sucks because Brock exists. There's only 1 card you can play with it, which with the EX and other power level in the game, Golem doesn't really feel that playable either. So just a lot of weird ways that Brock just doesn't work as a card. Also, that brings me to my next point. There's just too much RNG in the game in general. Too much power is determined by a coin flip, whether it's going first, whether it's playing Marowak, Executor, Misty, what else is there that's a coin flip? Hypno, Wigglytuff, like Aerodactyl, where you can just bounce an entire Pokemon, like an EX Mewtwo with 4 energy. You can just bounce it on a coin flip. There needs to be better effects and balancing mechanics than just let's make everything overtuned on a coin flip in the supposedly lower format or lower power, quicker format. That's just like a quick thing. I don't know what you do there, but just like it's already overloaded on coin flips, even though that is kind of what the TCG is. The amount of power for the format and what the game is kind of ridiculous. Where it's like, yeah, EX Pokemon are crazy, so let's reduce their, like, let's nerf their power or keep them in check with a coin flip. But if you fail it, you just lose the game. What a fun and balanced game that sounds like. How did the devs allow any of this? I'm still mad beta players got to keep any of their stuff. And we also need more trainer cards that, even with the limited deck building, like you can only have 20 cards in a deck, and there's almost no cards to choose from to put it into the deck on the trainer side. The supporters are either very narrow or 100% runs, and there's still not enough of them, it feels, and then you just put in EX cards for the rest. Like, there needs to be more trainer cards that provide a lot more gameplay routes, because that's the reason why EX and some of these other decks are so dominant, because everyone's playing with the base 14 cards, and then whatever 6 cards are powerful, there's just less variance there. And 2-stage evolution Pokemon and decks feel really weak compared to just a basic or stage 1 EX drop. So adding again something like a Great Ball or an Ultra Ball that only fetches those kinds of cards could give a lot of consistency and open up deck diversity. Now if that makes Dragonite too strong, Dragonite might need a nerf. But also, if EX power level goes down, you can hit Dragonite to 40 per targeting on the Draco Meteor, because you don't need the 50 to do anything about the inflated health values because EX Pokemon exist. So yeah, everything can get reasonably balanced. Rare Candy could easily get too powerful, but also if the game just existed with Rare Candy right now, I feel like that would offset a lot of EX power, where it's like evolve one of your Pokemon that isn't EX. So you could just like go straight into a Charizard instead, and then or have to choose to like build up a Charizard EX or something like that. That would be a phenomenal idea. Just make Rare Candy and have it not work for EX, and there you go. Maybe also put a stipulation where it's like you can only have 1 Rare Candy in your deck. Because if you could have multiple rare candies, then yeah, deck building again starts getting centralized. I feel like there'd be 1 or 2 dominant stage 2 decks only because of the existence of rare candy. But we need some kind of diversity. That way there's just a lot more balance power instead of the top-heavy Mewtwo EX, Pikachu EX that we see, and other EX strategies making it a lot harder to play evolutionary decks, or just more simple kind of decks like you would want in a nostalgic Pokemon mobile game with a simplified TCG mechanics. And then Pokemon tools, that would also help, where it's like prevent 20 damage from the opposing Pokemon's EX. If the game was tested for any amount of seconds, that card should just exist right now. And there needs to be a hot fix live patch, put that in the shop to where anyone that wants to play a non-EX deck couldn't do that. And maybe you can't use that tool on an EX card, that way at least like strengthens non-EX deck building, or makes it to where you can't only run 4 EX Pokemon or 3 or 2 EX Pokemon and have that be the entire core of your deck. So something like that would be pretty cool. And then any other Pokemon tool where it's like, oh, your water-type Pokemon gets X, your fire-type Pokemon gets blank, and something like that. Like we see with Pokemon tools, permanent retreat cost reduction, so you can maybe like play a hit and run, tag out switchy deck, at least open up diverse play inside of it. But it seems like the devs are like, nope, here's our entire plan for like the first month, and we're not changing, we're not balancing. Even though, like, then what's the point of doing a test? That's supposed to find some of the issues and at least give you a little bit of sign on what you need to react to. Because, like, cool, you can have a beta and then not launch the game with changes. But after a week, when there's this many problems, that's when you're like, oh, we had these ideas queued up. It seems like our testing was correct in this, and now that more players play the game, all of these issues are exacerbated. Hot fix. Why is it that no Pokemon Company game is capable of timely balance? I don't know. And then, of course, like, for other things on this list, we need more Pokemon cards faster. It could be through promo events like this, other promo packs. It doesn't have to be an entire set. But it's kind of weird that Genetic Apex, like, with this big set launch and over 200 cards, it really doesn't feel like that. There could have been more abilities put into Pokemon to give us more diverse play, because that's kind of it. Like, the only alternative things that are playable are Pokemon with abilities like Weezing, and that's cool. But the strategies are very, like, one-sided, straightforward, and don't do anything else. But the current lineup of abilities are non-existent, one-dimensional, or overpowered like we have with Gardevoir, where you can't really balance just auto energy generation onto any Pokemon like that. That's going to be twice as powerful as the base game, because there's only 3 prize cards effectively instead of 6. So you just accelerate, and then you take out the opponent's EX easier. And then the synergy with Mewtwo, yeah, maybe Gardevoir could be balanced in a different kind of typing. Then we have Magneton, which can only put energy onto itself, needs a supporter card like Lieutenant Surge to put it onto a worse Pokemon than Mewtwo EX. The center of the power level for this game should have been based on Magneton plus Lieutenant Surge, and then whatever else happens. It's like 4 energy for 60 on a Pokemon that evolves, where you just play a Pokemon, put energy, evolve it, put energy. In the case of Starmie EX, 90 for 2 energy instead of 60 for 40 in the same amount of turns and evolution. Actually, Magneton is 1 turn slower because Magnemite doesn't get the free energy, so it's Magnemite energy, Magneton 2 energy. That's still not enough, so any Pokemon with a 3 energy cost that does 60 damage or more is just better. Like, those are the kind of old school energy cost and low power that you expect from an early Pokemon TCG card, and I feel like those longer, more grindy battles could be fun, similar to a GOAT format, but then you introduce EX power level with like a passable modern Pokemon card, and of course that's going to be the only thing anyone plays. So yeah, you base the power level around that and the game's fun. I mean, look at Rhydon. 4 energy for 100 damage, no way of accelerating that. Cool, that feels like good old Pokemon. And then with limitations on EX, like EX Charizard, Moltres EX's Inferno Dance feels kind of balanced. Maybe make it require 2 energy so you don't just like, oh, yeah, that's the thing, like, the opponent gets heads, you play Moltres EX, fire energy, and then you effectively have a Misty, where, like, oh, you can attack going second, and then just grab potentially 3 energy. Getting 1 energy out of 3 coin flips is too much. I don't care if it costs you a turn, because your opponent can't respond to it. There's no counterplay to that. So Moltres EX comes in too hot, too free, even with EX power level. And then something, I don't know. But there's a lot of balance and a lot of problems, and if those get fixed, I'm like, damn, this game should be a smash hit that anyone can play, and everyone wants to play. But yeah, that's what needs to be done about Pokemon TCG Pocket. Just a little annoying stuff like not enough trainer cards, and then some weird gameplay mechanics, but then big things like sorting out turn 1 or starting coin flip, and then especially EX Pokemon. Everything's great, so I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.